Sadhguru, you just, in answer to a question that Bharti asked, you said enlightened beings prefer to be elsewhere. Now, we're all on this bus journey with you, you're driving. Now, at some point, you may decide to hop off the bus. You have two types of passengers, those who are focused on the destination. So even if you put it on autopilot, it should be okay. You also have passengers who are focused on the driver, the destination doesn't matter. Now, if you put it on autopilot, what happens to them? And in that context, there's also text 22 to 23 to 25 in chapter 8. I just wanted to understand that also.
So there are some people who are interested in the driver, not the destination. You have gotten interested in the driver only because of the destination that he has chosen. You wouldn't be interested in the driver if he was not going towards a certain destination. Isn't it so? Isn't it so? Your interest in the driver has developed only because of the destination that he represents. Let's say, here you go to Semmedu to get into your bus, Semmedu, the local village, to take a bus. Every day the same bus with the same driver comes, you know. So there, like 11 o'clock the bus has to leave, and at 10:55 the driver will be taking that last puff from his BD or cigarette. He'll be not trying to waste the last part of the cigarette, you know, he'll be sucking it out in urgency. So when you see him sucking on the cigarette in hurry, in urgency, then if you want to go to Coimbatore, you say, "Hey, Coimbatore!" Oh. You didn't look at the bus, you didn't see the Coimbatore city in your mind. That man is Coimbatore, isn't it? Isn't it so? Yes or no? That man in your village represents Coimbatore for you. If you see him, he is Coimbatore for you, because you have not been to Coimbatore by yourself. You know he can take you to Coimbatore, so he, in your mind, in your understanding, in your experience, he becomes the symbol of Coimbatore. He becomes the passage to Coimbatore city. So it's only in that context, if you have a dream about going to Coimbatore, then this man who drives the bus also becomes a part of your dream. Now, if you had no wish to go to Coimbatore at all, you wouldn't be interested in this man at all. You wouldn't be. People aren't, isn't it? So you are thinking Sadhguru with tears in your eyes. I go to the next village, they're not even bothered who I am. Yes? Because they are not interested in going anywhere, they have not even thought about it. So what I represent doesn't mean anything to them. That's how it is. So, your interest is destination, but your destination is an abstract thing. The driver is something that you can relate to. So, driver has become very important in your mind and in your understanding. But actually the important thing for you is destination. There is also, because the way the mind understands and knows things and perceives things is like this, if the driver is not there, will we really get to the destination? That's the question. So you have no trust in the technology of autopiloting. Because you think if it's put on autopilot, it won't happen. That is not the point. So, suppose you leave tomorrow, is our spiritual journey going to end? Definitely not. Instead of piloting from outside, it could be piloted from inside. When we initiate, The initiations that you have gone through, whether it's the smallest shunya initiation or anything else that you have gone through, they are not empty procedures. They are not a bundle of instructions. They are a huge investment of life energy. Once this is done, you're keeping it as a seed in your belly, you don't feel its presence. If it is becoming a big tree, there is no way you cannot feel its presence. So you just have to create the necessary atmosphere for it to become a big tree where you will not miss its presence. The unfortunate reality for many, many masters in the past has been this, that always the spiritual processes that they started always gathered much more momentum after they left, for most of them. It is so. So you want to do it that way? That is also fine because the physical absence will make the other presence very powerful always. It is not just an emotion. The reality of physically being absent always enhances the other dimension much more. So, if such a thing happens tomorrow, that will also be to your benefit. So you don't have to really concern about that. Tomorrow it won't happen. Sorry to disappoint you Those who know Brahman and pass away during fire, light, an auspicious time of day, the bright lunar fortnight and the 6th month of sun's northern solstice, go to Brahman. The mystic who passes away during smoke or smoky night, the lunar dark fortnight and the sun's 6th-month southern solstice attains the lunar light and returns. According to the Vedas, there are two ways of leaving the world, one in light and one in darkness. When one passes away during… I don't have that part of it, can you read?
When one passes away during light, one does not return. During darkness, one returns. Aware of these two paths, the devotee is never confused. Therefore, O Arjuna, at all times be steadfast in yoga.
So he's telling him, be ready all the time. You may live in daylight, you may live in darkness. Whichever way it happens, you be ready. That's good. About this northern solstice and southern solstice, in the northern hemisphere of the planet, it has some influence on a person's life. You know, Bhishma, he waited for the northern solstice to come, and among the people that we know, you know, Nirmalananda waited for… do you remember he told you? He said he wants to wait for that day till the sun shifts. So he left after that. You heard of Nirmalananda? All of you, I'm asking? No? How many of you came there with us when we went there? Okay, just 3, 4, 5 of you. Okay. So when he decided to leave his body, he waited for that time. But generally, if we look at the history of people living like this consciously, a lot of people have left on the first full moon night after the shift in the sun's position with the planet, which is called as the Thaipusam in Tamil Nadu. That's the day Vijay also left. That's more because there is a certain help at that time. Though for her it was planned a month later, she left a month earlier because nature's forces everything came together and the ideal situation and it happened. It's not just with her, so many other people, it's happened like that. Any number of sages, Siddhas especially in southern India, have left on that day because it's most conducive. The conduciveness of that day is such that when it happened here, see, if I want to leave tomorrow, at least for 24 hours I will keep my stomach empty. It's something that's necessary. With food in the stomach, it won't be the same thing, it doesn't feel the same way. Your ability to control your life energies is not the same. That's why we told you, you must do your sadhana on the empty stomach, but you're drinking Coca-Cola and doing it? No? Okay. It must be an empty stomach because that is when your ability to generate and move energy the way you want it is best. So, when the sun shifts in its journey in relation to the planet, or when the planet shifts its position in relationship with the sun, then especially in the northern hemisphere, the situation is more conducive for a person to leave the body. So Bhishma waited for 21 days. I think Nirmalananda waited for almost 4 months plus after he made up his mind to leave. Others did not consciously wait, but they were waiting for a conducive situation within themselves, and it always occurred to them just on the first full moon after the shift in the solstice. So that definitely has something to do with this. And is there a 27, 26, 27? So according to the Vedas, there are two ways of leaving the world, one in light and one in darkness. When one passes away, during light one does not return, and during darkness one returns. See, this light and darkness need not necessarily be in terms of day and night. He may be referring to in terms of, even though he's well-versed in yoga and everything, if he lives in a moment of unawareness, he returns. If he lives in awareness, he doesn't return. This light and darkness may be a very simplistic translation, it cannot be day and night, because generally they choose twilight. Lot of yogis choose morning 3:40 to 3:50, which is known as the Brahma Muhurtam. So, it is dark at that time. It is definitely not in terms of light and darkness, in terms of day and night. He is talking about light and darkness as awareness and unawareness. Does that answer that?
If you could explain a little bit more about how a being dissolving serves humanity. It seems to me, and of course I'm making an assumption, that the more realized beings that hung around, the better off humanity would be. So when you talk about dissolution, it seems like the ultimate last selfish act, and it just, it repels me. It's a huge block for me. And part of that too is when you spoke the other day about once that we have set with you, then, we don't really, we're gonna dissolve at our moment of death. Well, what if I don't want to dissolve? What if I want to come back and serve humanity in a way that you've chosen to come back and serve humanity?
You believe you are making choices. That's the biggest problem. See, just see how much of you is functioning compulsively right now. How much of you is functioning consciously right now? Please tell me. Yes, everybody, anybody. How much of you is truly consciously functioning? How much of you is compulsively functioning? I'm sorry, Pam?
I have no idea.
Oh, you must look at it before you make choices. If you're unconscious or compulsive, you shouldn't make choices, isn't it? I'm asking you, how much of you right now, as a being here, how much of you is functioning consciously? How much of you compulsively?
Probably about 80-20.
Huh?
Probably about 80-20. I don't know. I mean, I don't…
80 is what?
80% unconscious, compulsive.
Okay. It is not so. Let me not talk about the reality. But even if we assume your estimates are right, somebody who is 80% unconscious, should they even decide about the ultimate nature of life? Is it right? 80% of you is compulsive. So everything that you say, we have to discount 80%. Isn't it so? Isn't it so? If 80% of you is happening compulsively, 80% of whatever you say doesn't mean anything. But I'm telling you, 80% you're being very generous to yourself. Very, very generous to yourself. I'm telling you, you are functioning 100% compulsively. I'm not saying you alone, a large part of humanity. What you think is choice is also a compulsive choice, you cannot choose any other way. When life gets painful, you talk dissolution. When life gets little good, you talk about coming back and serving the humanity. Why do you want to come back? Why don't you serve this time? Anyway, you're here. Why don't you serve this time around? Why you want to come back and serve?
Because when I come back, I'll be realized according to you. And
Why don't you realize right now and serve now?
Well, bring it on.
Okay, right now, you are not realized, but you want to come back and serve after you realized. I am realized, under my guidance you serve.
Yes.
No, but you want to come back next time and serve. It doesn't happen like that, because it is 100% compulsive. You're saying these things because you're afraid of that dissolution. Another thing is you're deeply attached to what you call as myself. You're very deeply attached to what you call as myself. When I tell you, you have no existence beyond this, if the bubble breaks, it's over. Your ego, your personality doesn't like it. But I'm not somebody who is here to tell you what you like, because the nature of the existence is such, either you perceive it and become a part of it, or you don't perceive it and hallucinate according to your likes and dislikes. It doesn't mean anything. With a lot of people in the world, if they just evaporate tomorrow morning, they would do a great good to the world. Isn't it so? Really. Not because they're doing any evil things, simply because in 24 hours of existence, in so many ways they torture themselves with fear, with anxiety, with superiority, inferiority, this one, that one, insecurity. 24 hours, any number of moments they're torturing themselves. Anybody who is causing torture to this life is naturally propagating torture in the world. If you're an absolutely blissful being, which you're talking about next time round, when you get realized and come back as a totally blissful being, I would be useful to the world, so why don't I stay? If you dissolve, suppose let's say all of us, this 200 of us, just leave our bodies in utmost awareness and completely dissolve. What will happen is such a big explosion. It'll be such a huge explosion. If another 1,000 realized beings come, they cannot generate that kind of energy and that kind of space. If you come back here after 10,000 years, if these 200 people left here now, if you come back here after 10,000 years, this space will be much more alive than it is right now, after 10,000 years. You can't kill it forever and ever and ever. But if I live here and work, maybe I will run rural rejuvenation program. It may go somewhere or it may just flounder and get lost, which is always a possibility. So, if you're really concerned about the world's well-being, there is no such thing. Right now, well-being starts from you, isn't it? Isn't it so? Is that real or no? Well-being starts from you. Your idea of well-being has begun from you. Out of your understanding or generosity, allow slowly you're trying to extend that boundary. You're trying to extend the well-being to family, to community, to world. It's still not happened, it's still talk. It's still talk, isn't it so? You don't have to be realized, as I told you. Anyway, at least you're referring to me as a realized being. Why don't you take my guidance and serve the world? It'll be as good as realized being serving the world, isn't it so? Yes or no? So, don't think about the next, because next is an assumption. As far as you're concerned, it's just an assumption, it's an empty thing, isn't it? It's not a living reality. Now you're in a living reality, allow it to happen.